Despite Overwatch's many unique heroes and abilities, there's always room to add more fun and effective new mechanics to freshen up the game, especially when it comes to the more underrepresented hero classes. That's why today I'm proposing a brand new support hero concept, which would not only give players more healer options in-game, but also quite possibly help to mix up the meta in a much needed way. I present to you the Support Engineer. This is Master Ian Gamer, and let's get into it. Now, while the image I just showed you may have only been for a laugh, I'm actually quite serious about this hero concept overall. Unlike some of the previous concepts I've done, this one is going to be a complete hero kit with most of the details planned out. And for the sake of representing my support engineer concept, I'll be using the TF2 engineer. To be clear, I am not implying that he'll be an Overwatch hero, but rather it's just for visual representation of the character concept and abilities.
Thanks, mister.
I'll also be doing that with a few of the ability icons as well, so just keep that in mind as we move forward. And one other thing to note is that I won't be going too specific with all the damage and cooldown numbers, since that would require testing with an actual in-game prototype hero in order to determine, but I will be giving relative estimates for most of these instead. Anyways, let's get started. The support engineer is your standardly sized humanoid hero. No special body features or odd weak points, and thus he has a standard 200 HP health pool. His primary weapon is the Biotic Welder. As its name implies, it is quite similar to Ana's Biotic Rifle, in that it will both heal allies and damage enemies. But beyond that, it functions quite differently. The Biotic Welder's primary fire is a single target hit scan beam, just like Symmetra and Zarya's primary fires, and will also have a similar range, being somewhere between 10 and 15 meters. As I mentioned, this beam will heal when it comes in contact with allies and deal damage when touching an enemy. It'll do relatively small amounts of each, likely only being around 40 healing or damage per second. However, being a welder, it will do bonus damage against armor, just like Torbjorn's Molten Core, making it more effective against tanks and Brigitte. On top of this though, when alternate firing with the Biotic Welder, the gun quickly charges up, consuming all remaining ammo in the process, and fires a sudden large beam that does significantly more healing or damage. This beam functions like a projectile shot in that it only actually hits once, meaning you can't sweep it to hit multiple targets, but since it's a beam, it'll still bypass Genji's deflect and D.Va's defense matrix. The amount of damage or healing done by this charged shot is directly proportional to the amount of ammo you had remaining in the gun when firing it, with more ammo meaning more power. However, this alternate fire is high risk. Once the charged shot is fired, the Biotic Welder becomes overheated, meaning it can't be used again at all until after it cools down. Just like the power of the charged shot, the duration of its cooldown is determined by how much ammo you used when alternate firing, with more ammo causing a longer cooldown. Also, regardless of ammo consumed, the total long-term HPS and DPS output of using the alternate fire is lower than when solely using the primary fire beam, even considering reload time. The reason for this is to designate the alternate fire as an emergency burst heal or damage for when you need to quickly save the life of an ally or finish off a key enemy target. And since using it makes you largely defenseless for a period afterwards, it gives more room for experienced players to know when to risk using it and when not to. Moving on now to the first of the support engineer's activated abilities, we have his primary method of healing, which is the health station. The best comparison to make for this ability would be the engineer's own dispenser from TF2, Grok's healing totem from Paladins, or if nothing else, just think of a healing variant of Orisa's supercharger. The health station is a buildable structure which heals all nearby allies during its uptime. Like Torb's turret, it can be toss deployed, likely up to a distance of 10 meters, thus allowing you a good amount of freedom when choosing where to place it. And like supercharger, the station has visible beams spanning from itself to each of the allies it's actively healing. This allows both allies and enemies alike to be able to quickly determine its location and who's being healed. When an ally reaches full health, the beam disconnects, but it remains active until it either automatically deactivates after a set period of time or is destroyed by the enemy. The health station has a high HPS, likely even exceeding Moira's own 80 heals per second. However, one special attribute of the station is that it evenly distributes its healing output to all non-full health allies within its effective radius. That means if there's one damaged ally nearby, they get the full healing output. If there's 2, they each get half, if 3, a third, and so on. If any of these targets reach full health or leave its radius, then the others start getting healed at the higher rate again. This allows the station to heal multiple targets simultaneously, but without letting it heal too much. Unlike Moira, who has to actively be healing her teammates, the station heals autonomously, thus allowing the support engineer to continue healing and dealing damage on his own while it's active. The ability has a cooldown of about 10 seconds, and the health station will remain active for about 7 seconds, unless the enemy destroys it sooner. This cooldown being longer than its max uptime ensures that there will always be at least a small interval of time where the support Eng's team can't utilize its strong healing output. When adding together the total potential healing of both Healing Station and Biotic Welder, the hero should be capable of outputting some serious heals per second. However, this is off-put by the fact that the health station can only be relocated once every 10 seconds, thus restricting its potential, especially in more mobile team comps. On top of this, its immobility while deployed opens up lots of room for strategy and counterplay. If the player is careless with where they toss the station, it could easily be destroyed by the enemy or unable to connect to wounded teammates, thus being useless for the next several seconds. Some other important aspects for it would be its own health pool and range of effectiveness. I'd give it about 150 personal health, that way it could survive a Reinhardt fire strike and a small amount of damage before being destroyed, but overall it's fairly weak and thus should be carefully protected. Despite the similarities to Orisa's supercharger, the station would have a much shorter range, likely only being about 10 meters, thus forcing your team to stay in close proximity in order for it to be effective. Given how unique of an ability this is for Overwatch, it's been difficult to determine the precise mechanics of Health Station. As a possible alternative, the device may instead work more similarly to Torb's turret, where it remains up indefinitely, but initiates a cooldown when destroyed, thus preventing the player from being able to just immediately redeploy it. Or it might just deactivate after it outputs a set amount of health, rather than being active for a defined length of time. Overall, I felt these weren't quite as fitting for the healing structure, since unlike Torb's turret, it could easily be placed behind an obstacle where it'll still heal the team, but make it very difficult for the enemy to target. I think the automatic time-based deactivation is the most balanced, but there is certainly a lot of room to adjust its exact attributes. This now leads us to the second activated ability, which is Tar Bomb. Tar Bomb is where the support NG offers the most utility outside of healing, and it works just as you might imagine. Similar to Molten Core, the hero fires a single glob of hot tar up to 40 meters in an arc. Wherever it lands, the glob explodes into a tar pool. This pool slows all enemies moving over it and deals very minor damage as well when in it. For now, I'd say it slows by 50% and deals 10 DPS. The tar pool has a diameter of 5 meters and lasts about 5 seconds. On top of creating a tar pool on the ground, the tar bomb has another aspect where it tars any enemies caught within its 5-meter diameter of impact. Tarred players move 50% slower, irregardless of the tar pool it creates, and additionally cannot use movement abilities until the effect wears off. This has the same parameters as Graviton Surge, where abilities like Moira's Fade and Reaper's Wraith form can still be used, but everything else is disabled while under its effects. The tarred status lasts about 3 seconds, or until it's cleansed in the same way as any other status effect. The tar bomb has a longish cooldown, likely being at least 12 seconds, and the movement reduction doesn't stack, meaning that a tarred player who is standing in a tar pool will still only be 50% slowed. The purpose of Tar Bomb is to give the support engineer a means to slow enemy advancement, and also function as a sort of escape tool when in close range combat. For example, if they're being dove by a Genji, all you need to do is fire the Tar Bomb at your feet when he's close to drastically reduce Genji's ability to pursue. Then the player skedaddles and leaves Genji to his fate. This ability is supposed to be versatile and can be utilized in a number of different ways and situations. However, its long cooldown and relatively small area of effect make it tricky to use effectively unless the player is smart about their placement and timing. Like the health station, the unique nature of this ability makes it difficult to determine how exactly it should be balanced, especially especially when considering the various effects of the tar pool and tarred status. For example, perhaps being tarred would only prevent movement abilities, but not slow the player like the pool itself. Or maybe the pool should be slightly bigger or smaller, or remain active for longer. Again, these are things that can only be determined by testing the hero and ability in-game, but for now, this concept should suffice. This now leads us to the support engineer's ultimate ability. Being a support hero, his ultimate is designed to give immense sustain for his team. And what better way of doing this than with a swarm of healing drones? Upon activation, the hero deploys a small swarm of tiny drones that follow and heal allies. The swarm consists of 12 drones, and upon activation, they evenly divide themselves amongst all nearby allies within range and reasonable line of sight. This means that when all 6 team members are present, each one will get 2. If there's only 3 of you, everyone gets 4, and if you solo ult, you get the entire 12 drone swarm healing just you. This gives the ultimate actual viability regardless of how many teammates are dead, unlike Lucio or Zenyatta's ults where value is lost with fewer teammates. Regarding the drone swarm's total healing output, it would be relatively on par with that of Zenyatta's Transcendence, but with several things to differentiate it. As I said, the actual amount of healing any given ally receives is relative to how many allies are present, thus behaving similar to the health station in this regard. Each drone individually would output about 200 HPS, meaning that their total healing comes out to 2400 HPS, but that is divided by all present teammates. This might sound insanely powerful, but the big thing to keep in mind is that the drones themselves can be destroyed. Each one only has about 75 HP, making them fairly easy to dispatch of, but their large numbers and small size offsets this a bit. As for their behavior on the field, they'd essentially just be supercharged Zen Harmony orbs, following above a player after having been deployed. They won't reassign themselves once their followed player reaches full health, but rather they remain on their initial ally until the drone is destroyed, their followed ally dies, or the ultimate ends. The 12 drones will always evenly divide themselves upon activation, but in the case where there are 5 players present, every player will get 2, with the remaining 2 drones dividing themselves amongst the support engineer and whichever other ally is nearest. The ultimate lasts about 10 seconds, with all drones automatically deactivating after this period of time, and will continue to operate even if the support engineer dies before then. The radius in which they check for allies upon activation would be around 30 meters, and they would have a slightly beyond line of sight connectability, meaning that if you're slightly obscured by a doorway or a lamppost, they'll still detect and fly to you. Once again, this ability is one which could undergo some substantial adjustments after being prototype tested. In particular, things like the healing output and personal health of the drones could vary a bit for the sake of balance, but overall it should remain comparable in functionality to Transcendence, Sound Barrier, and Rally, with the drone swarm's unique aspect being the way the drones distribute the ability's total healing, and the fact that they can be individually destroyed to hinder the ult's duration and effectiveness. Overall, the support engineer is designed to be a main healer who works best in bunker team comps, as his close-range healing structure would be most effective behind the safety of a barrier, and Tar Bomb's various effects could slow enemies who are trying to push in for close-quarters engagements. He has an overall strong amount of potential healing output, but it's offset by low mobility, especially when it comes to the health station. Because of this ability's immobility and short healing range, it will prevent the support engineer from adding to the currently notorious triple tank, triple support meta, as the station will be left behind as soon as the team tries to quickly advance. And outside of that in his ultimate, the hero is only capable of single target healing. The support Engie overall could actually be a strong counter to Goats, with Tar Bomb slowing their clustered formation, and the rest of his kit synergizing strongly with Orisa and Bastion, who themselves are in theory decent counters, but perhaps just need the right support hero to become more effective. He'd also be pretty effective in pirate ship comps, as the health station could simply be placed on the payload to move with the team. If there's one area where I'd be concerned about him being possibly too strong, it'd be here, but that's nothing that some good old post-launch balance tweaks couldn't fix if it did ever become a problem. I should also address the fact that Overwatch's builder heroes have never been particularly strong. Heroes like Symmetra and Torbjorn have historically been very niche at best, so I can understand a lot of players and likely even the Overwatch devs themselves being skeptical about adding in yet another builder, but I'm optimistic enough to think that a proper healing support builder might actually work, especially considering how much experience the devs have had at this point with designing heroes. Torbjorn and Symmetra were both both pretty early heroes in the game, so maybe starting fresh rather than reworking an old idea could give us something really good. As for the characters' backstory and relationships, I think they could really be just about anything. Given the low number of evil heroes, especially when it comes to the science and engineering side of things, it might be cool for them to be a Talon engineer, possibly being someone who works closely with Moira and thus utilizes her research in his tech. And before wrapping up, I do also need to mention that I am by no means a game designer, and thus everything I've talked about here should be taken with additional consideration. I mainly wanted to just present a cool, unique idea that, if balanced properly, may very well work as a fun future hero in Overwatch. I'm not necessarily expecting them to be a future hero, although I think they could work and would be pretty awesome to have on the game's roster. And so on that note, let me know your thoughts about my support engineer concept by commenting down below. Do you think they'd make for a good new hero? And if not, then what would you recommend changing about their kit? I always love hearing your ideas, so be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video and share it with a friend if you really liked it. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and hit up the bell to never miss any of my future Overwatch content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time,
you're all about to have a real bad day.